smooth muscle physiology, and we will be discussing the regulation of contraction. Previously, we have seen the mechanism of contraction, relaxation, and the characteristics of smooth muscle contraction. While doing so, we discussed that the smooth muscles may be stimulated by the nervous or non-nervous stimuli. And in this lecture, we are going to have a look at the nervous hormonal stimuli of the smooth muscle contraction. So, skeletal muscles, if we compare it with the smooth muscles, were only stimulated by the nervous stimuli and not modulated or stimulated by any other type of stimuli. Whereas smooth muscles can be stimulated by either nervous or non-nervous stimuli, for example, hormonal stimuli, stretch, or any other chemical stimulus. Also, the smooth muscles have variety of receptors, whereas skeletal muscles only had acetylcholine-mediated channels. And these smooth muscles may respond differently to the same chemical mediator. For example, some smooth muscles may be contracting and other might be relaxing in response to the epinephrine or norepinephrine or acetylcholine. And that is because of the difference of the receptors present on it. And these receptors would decide if they are excitatory or inhibitory. If stimulated, can either lead to contraction or the relaxation of the smooth muscles. Neuromuscular junction of smooth muscles is different in unitary and multi-unit smooth muscles, where multi-unit smooth muscles have contact type of neuromuscular junction, where each muscle fiber is separately innervated by the neuronal terminal. And these neuronal terminals, while passing through these multi-unit smooth muscles, have multiple varicosities where the acetylcholine or any other neurotransmitter is stored and released upon particular stimulus. Whereas the unitary smooth muscles have this diffuse type of neuromuscular innervation, where the neurotransmitter is released to the superficial layer of the unitary smooth muscles and the message is communicated to the rest of the layers via the gap junctions. And interestingly, the membrane potential of smooth muscles is also much less as compared to the skeletal muscles, only minus 50 to minus 60 millivolts. And the action potential that occurs in smooth muscles is also behaving differently in the unitary and multi-unit smooth muscles. Mostly the action potential is seen in the unitary smooth muscles in the form of either spike potentials or action potential with plateaus, and is rarely seen in the multi-unit smooth muscles. Then what do the multi-unit smooth muscles do? If they may rarely see an action potential, there might be only depolarization but no action potential, and there might be maybe no action potential and no depolarization, and the multi-unit smooth muscle might still be contracting. How does this occur? This we will be discussing in the coming up slides. So looking into the action potentials of unitary smooth muscle, the first of all spike potential. You can see over here the spike seen over these. These are the spike potentials. And under them are the slow waves. Right now, what we are discussing are the spike potentials, which are in the form of the spike above. They have a rapid depolarization and repolarization. These are true action potentials and observed all around law, mostly seen in the unitary smooth muscles and can be triggered by any type of the stimulus upon these slow waves. So slow waves are the just precursors above which the true action potentials or spike potentials are born, and these spike potentials are followed by the contraction of the smooth muscles. Whereas action potential with plateaus begin just like spike potential, but repolarization is delayed, mostly like this, and they have a plateau of partial state of depolarization, and they are involved in prolonged state of contraction, for example, in the ureter, uterus, muscular smooth muscles, and this type of action potential is also observed in the cardiac muscles. Ionic basis of action potential, mostly both calcium and sodium are involved in the depolarization, and repolarization is by the calcium. If we look at the slow waves, these are not true action potentials. Spike potentials and plateau potentials were true action potentials, whereas the slow waves are the self-excitatory potential changes of the unitary smooth muscles. You will not find them in the multi-unit smooth muscles, only in the unitary smooth muscles. And these are self-excitatory. The inherent potential of the smooth muscles, for example, in the smooth muscles of the gut, they arise without external stimulation and associated with the basic slow wave rhythm of the membrane potential, that they keep on occurring and disappearing, depolarization and repolarization on a uniform basis. This is common in visual smooth muscles, not true action potential, will not be propagated, will not lead to contraction, and only the oscillations in the membrane potential. If they reach the threshold level, the spike potential may discharge over and above them. And the modulating stimuli, for example, stretch and hormonal stimuli, may help them reach or prevent them from reaching the threshold potential, after which the spike potentials can be discharged. The exact cause of this is unknown, but mostly it is speculated the slow waves are caused by the leaky channels, mostly the sodium channels, which open and close, leading to this rhythmic opening, closing, and depolarization, or maybe we should call it potential change in the muscle membrane. Significance of slow waves is, although they do not cause contraction, but that they can lead to the triggering of the action potential, which can result in contraction ultimately. If these slow waves keep on occurring at a uniform frequency, reaching the threshold, leading to the formation of these spike potentials over and above, they will be leading to the ultimate contractile activity of the smooth muscle at a regular pace. Then we will call them the pacemaker waves. For example, seen in the gut motility networks of the peristalsis. Now, if we talk about the multi-unit smooth muscles, they may contract by potential change, that is depolarization, and without full action potential formation. For example, iris, spirorectal muscle, they respond to nervous stimuli, the acetylcholine or epinephrine, it comes, depolarizes, junctional potential or end plate potential is formed, there is no action potential. Still, it is enough to lead to influx of the calcium and the muscle contraction occurs. And 50% of the smooth muscle contractions are going to occur even without the action potentials, and they may be under the influence of non-nervous stimuli. And then there are other factors which cause muscle contraction without action potential and even without depolarization. Now, how do these factors work? They work by directly opening the calcium channels. For example, the stretch of the muscle membrane may lead to opening of this mechanical gated calcium channel. Or for example, a chemical messenger. This is a, let's suppose, ligand gated calcium channel. A chemical messenger arrives and opens up this calcium channel. So other factors without action potential, without depolarization, directly lead to influx of calcium and cause depolarization. For example, this is the list of the factors which are inhibitory and will cause the relaxation of smooth muscles: low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, increased hydrogen ion concentration, and most importantly, nitric oxide. Rest of the list you can see are all the factors which are going to inhibit the calcium influx and lead to the smooth muscles relaxation. And this is the list of the factors which is directly going to open up the calcium gate channels and lead to the influx of calcium and contraction of smooth muscles. For example, oxytocin leading to contraction of the uterine muscle, just for the example. So, hormonal and local regulation can occur even without the action potential, without any change in the membrane potential, without any nervous stimulus. They can lead to either contraction or relaxation of the smooth muscles by opening or closure of sodium calcium channels. They will lead to depolarization, or by opening of chloride or potassium channel, they will lead to hyperpolarization and relaxation of the smooth muscles. And there are other membrane independent pathways which do not even come into contact with the cell membrane but directly lead to opening of the calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and the most conspicuous of them is the second messenger pathway. For example, the cyclic AMP, GMP, IP3, diacylglyceride. These all can modulate the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum and leading to the calcium influx and smooth muscle contraction. And here is a summary slide showing the membrane potential changes of unitary smooth muscles. We have seen the action potentials like the spike potentials. We have seen action potentials with the plateau, and we have seen the potential changes which are not true action potentials like slow waves and pacemaker waves in the unitary smooth muscles. And we also call this the myogenic potential, where the smooth muscles are excited by the inherent potential rather than by an external stimulus. While in case of the multi-unit smooth muscles, we have discussed depolarization without action potential, and we have discussed the contraction without action potential or depolarization simply by opening of the ligand-gated calcium channels or the involvement of the sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium channels, for example, by the hormonal or the chemical stimuli. So that's the summary of the smooth muscle regulation by the electrical and chemical and nervous and non-nervous stimuli. And that's all about the regulation. And I will be concluding the lecture by showing you a very important clinical correlation of smooth muscle contraction by using this image. Here is the nitric oxide. We saw this in the examples of the relaxation factors. What they do is they increase the activity of guanylyl cyclase by forming cyclic GMP. Nitric oxide lead to the relaxation of vascular smooth muscles by decreasing the availability of calcium. On the other hand, there is another chemical mediator, phosphodiesterase, which is involved in degradation of this cyclic GMP by converting into 5-GMP and stopping this relaxation action of nitric oxide. Now, we can take advantage of this potential of nitric oxide medically to induce relaxation of smooth muscles, for example, by directly providing nitric oxide in gaseous form, or maybe by providing the tablet that can inhibit this phosphodiesterase 5. The phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors are used medically, proven to inhibit this phosphodiesterase 5, increase cyclic GMP, decreased calcium, and increase relaxation of smooth muscles. And this potential is used for treating the pulmonary arterial pressure and decreasing the pulmonary artery hypertension by relaxing the smooth muscles. Particularly the drugs available, sildenafil and tadalafil, vardenafil, inhibit the phosphodiesterase 5. These are involved in treatment of pulmonary hypertension. Also, they increase the blood flow to the corpus cavernosum, so they help us treat the erectile dysfunction as well. So that's an important applied clinical aspect of smooth muscles. Similarly, calcium channel blockers are available to treat hypertension. They act by simply blocking the action of calcium on the vascular smooth muscles, and that is how they help us treat the hypertension. That's all from my side about the smooth muscles. Thank you very much.